When it comes to dating and relationships, we really need to do some work on ourselves before we put ourselves out there into the modern dating world. This is because we have so much access to people lately and access to be able to date a lot of different people. And if we don't first kind of identify our triggers, identify things that, what is the root cause? Like, why are we triggered? This is actually what people call doing the work. Doing the work is actually a process. It's definitely not an overnight thing. It's a long journey, okay, guys? And you could actually feel like you're healed and then get triggered again, and that's okay. Like, that's totally normal. It's actually going to happen. You can count on it. So, let's say that you grew up in a family. Well, actually, let's say you had the best parents in the world. They were just fantastic. And you got to remember that even the best parent was not capable of being there for you, everything you need, because they're just only human and they had their own lives, and our parents are still growing up too, okay? So we can't really sit there and, I mean, we can be angry, you can process those feelings, but at the same time, you got to also understand that our parents were doing the best they can most of the time. Of course, there's always exceptions when we had parents who were abusive to us. And I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in general, even those of us with the best parents and the best childhood still had to deal with a lot of traumas. At some point, we might have learned, maybe one of our parents overworked and, couldn't always be emotionally available for us. Okay. So that's like one of these things where we are going to feel almost like it's acceptable because we're used to that. Let's say our dad wasn't emotionally available. So it's going to be on a subconscious level where we might seek out men that were not emotionally available, or women that were not emotionally available because one of our parents was that way. So that's kind of normal to us and it's familiar to us, and our subconscious mind likes familiar. So even though it's not the healthiest way to be, we got to unlearn those things, which some people call this reparenting. Psychology is called reparenting yourself. So a lot of these things that our parents did, maybe it was like addiction. Maybe they had addiction, so they couldn't really be present for you all the time. That's going to cause some childhood wounds. Maybe your parents got divorced. That could cause, really good chance is going to cause an abandonment wound. So you might be a little extra clingy, have an anxious attachment style, right, to your partner. And that can cause a big problem if your partner is a secure attachment style, and that maybe you could be a little too much and actually push that person away. And that's something you really want to talk about with your partner in the beginning, is let them know, like, and once you explore it yourself, of course, once you do the work and you figure out the source. That's what doing the work is figuring out the source of why you get triggered. What are these subconscious patterns that you're bringing into your dating life, your relationships, and that's really affecting them like an otherwise healthy relationship. So you guys, I'm speaking from experience. Like, we all have this going on where these things are subconscious. The definition of subconscious is we usually aren't aware of them. But once we go out into the dating world, once we get into a relationship, we can be easily triggered. Like, let's say somebody doesn't text you back quick enough and you have that anxious attachment style. So you're going to be in your head, this like negative loop, like, why didn't he text me? Why didn't she text me back? Like, I thought we had a great date. And, you create this narrative in your head. You're creating these stories and that aren't necessarily even true. It's just due to your anxious attachment style. And somewhere along the line, you felt maybe that you weren't that lovable enough. You're not worthy. So that's something that doing the work is reprogramming that stuff and understanding that's a lie. You are worthy. And you guys, we do train people how to treat us. So maybe you're different than that, what I just explained. Maybe you're someone who accepts that emotional, unavailable person, that you accept it. Like, that's just like all I'm worth. So that's something that you would want to work on. And it's different for everybody, but what the work is paying attention, catching yourself in these when you get triggered and really going back and trying to figure out the root cause. It's usually from childhood. Also, a lot of it can come from a past relationship where you now have trust issues because you were with a partner who was not trustworthy, and that created trust issues. Maybe it wasn't even from childhood. Maybe it was from a former relationship that was maybe toxic, right? And you ended up with someone who you could have been a people pleaser and they kind of walked all over you and you allowed it, because you know what a lot of people pleasing is, hey, you know what, maybe I'm not wanted, so I'm going to make sure that I'm needed. I'm going to make sure that this person likes me so much by being so agreeable, like too agreeable to the point where you're not even authentic. So does that make sense? Because people pleasers, you think you're being nice, but in the reality, you're not being yourself. You're kind of lying because you're acting like things are okay that are really not okay with you. So listen, I'm not condemning anyone. I used to do the same thing. Okay. I just wanted things to go well and smoothly. I wanted people to like me, so I wasn't being my true self. I would say that I was fine with things when I really wasn't fine with things. And what happens later is, since you've established that you're okay with something and it wasn't true, you're going to really be upset, even though even though you're telling them it's fine. So your partner or the person you're dating has no idea they're even crossing a personal boundary because you never told them the truth. And then you're going to get passive aggressive, and it's going to come out in other ways like resentment. And so that's just something that's part of doing the work, is learning these things about yourself, learning your emotions. Why am I feeling this way? And those stories that we create in our head, really analyzing them, but in such a way of not overthinking, analyzing, but hey, is this even true? Is what I'm saying even true? I think it's Byron Katie, if I'm correct, that who says this. Like, really, like, if you can't find that it's true, if you're sitting there creating a story in your head, then throw it away. Because, like, let's say it's somebody who didn't get back to you fast enough, and you start to create this narrative like you're not worthy, and I knew it, and even though I think we had a great date, they don't care about me, and they're not texting me, they're not replying. I mean, what if it's not true? What if they're just busy, right? So that's that anxiety kicking in. Take some deep breaths, get out of that negative loop in your head. And you could always just ask too. Like, you could just straight up ask somebody what they're thinking and what they're feeling, instead of going in that negative loop in your head over and over and over and driving yourself insane. But in all honesty, you do train people how to treat you. So if you're acting like something's okay and it's really not, then that's on you. That's on you. You got to be honest and tell people what you expect in a relationship, what makes you feel secure. And if they're not that type of person who is willing to rise up to your standards, then that's simply not the person for you, because that person's going to cause your nervous system to be dysregulated. You're going to get a lot of anxiety, right? Because they're not willing to reply to your text for 24 hours or whatever it might be, right? So if you have a texting style that you prefer, like, hey, if you don't mind just letting me know when you're busy, instead of, going days without talking to me, I really appreciate that. And if they decide not to do that, that's your answer. They're telling you that you are not a priority. Honestly, you're not a priority in their life, and that's okay. That's not personal against you. It means they just have other things going on. That's not your person. Not everybody is compatible. Okay? That's something so important to know. We're not meant to be compatible with everyone. So definitely don't take things personally. You are worthy of someone who thinks you're wonderful and amazing and will reply to your text. So really doing the work is trying to find out, where did I learn these programs? We're mostly all living on subconscious programming. So what are my patterns? Number one is doing the work, figuring that out, meditating, journaling, just really quieting your mind, being out in nature, and talking to a therapist, a coach, or someone who does understand things like this, so you can really dig in and they can guide you to figure out like what were these childhood traumas. Like sometimes the people who are like, oh, I didn't have any childhood traumas, everything was great, my parents were great, my childhood was awesome. When you really dig in, you find out, wow, there were a lot of things where that they didn't even realize were traumatic, or taught them some programming, some subconscious programming that makes them react in certain ways today, and they don't even realize it. You know, that's what I mean by subconscious. It's just you're not aware of it. So doing the work is becoming self-aware, essentially. And doing this personal development work will change your life. When you take responsibility, take ownership of yourself, your emotions. When you get triggered, there's always a reason. It's usually nothing to do with the other person. There's a saying that I say is it's in a relationship, it's never about the shower curtain, right? You might be fighting about the shower curtain, but it's really about other things coming to the surface that we might not even be aware of. So digging into that is the work, and I hope that made sense to you guys. And I love the questions. I get a lot of questions, especially when I do relationship videos. It's such a challenge. A lot of healing happens. I'm going to say most healing happens when we're in a relationship. So that's when we are vulnerable and open. And what happens when we're vulnerable and open is we're putting ourselves out there to be triggered for all of this healing to happen. And when you are with someone who is capable and willing to work with you on these things from your childhood, when you help you figure out the source and you do the same for them, that is a conscious relationship. That is possible. I know people who are in conscious relationships. You should not be with somebody who feels like your enemy. You should be with someone who's uplifting you and feels like a good friend. Okay, guys? If you're with someone who is constantly holding you down or controlling you, or just making all these rules like you're less than them, maybe you're with someone who initially put you on a pedestal in the beginning of the relationship and then only to knock you down later and crush your spirit. That is not a conscious relationship. That is someone who probably, to be honest with you, was treated that way at some point in their life, and usually childhood, and they just don't even know how to be in a conscious relationship and to love you because they honestly probably don't love themselves. People who love themselves do not treat other people poorly. So I hope this helped, guys. If you have any questions, please comment below. I love getting comments because I guarantee you that if you have some sort of question about something, a lot of other people are thinking it too, because we are so much more alike than we realize. I have so many people thinking, oh, you're going to think I'm crazy. I've had, but really the stuff that they tell me is so similar to what I hear from everyone and what I feel myself too. So you're not crazy. A lot of us are dealing with all the same stuff. So feel free to comment below and share this with anyone you think it will help. And I hope you guys have a fantastic day.